Hello and welcome back to my shop, or maybe you should welcome me back to YouTube. I haven't done one of these in quite a while. I've still been making guitars and doing repair work, but it's taken a little bit more of a back seat in the last couple of years. But a couple months ago that shifted and I'm back in the shop pretty much full time, hoping to make that stick. And so that means I have more time to do stuff like this. And I was looking at what I'm doing in my shop today. One of those things is veneering the top of my headstock on this guitar I'm making, and I thought that would be a really great video to start off with. It's nice and simple, but first, really quick, I'd like to mention a sort of announcement. If you've been following me, I guess first of all, thanks, and keep an eye out for more of these videos. If my shop is new to you, welcome. I build guitars, I do guitar repair, I make these videos. They're primarily focused on the processes I use in my shop to make guitars. I also have been doing like one-on-one workshops with people, and I still am doing those, but lately I've been thinking that I want to try and do some small group classes, like really small, online, in person, keeping those separate, like minimum of 2 to 3 people, maximum of 4 to 6 people, probably about once a month. I want to get started with it, doing setups. If you build guitars, if you repair guitars, if you play guitars, knowing about setups can be really helpful. And while like the actions you're doing to do a setup are really simple for the most part, it's like very simple things. The knowing what you're doing is the really complicated or more difficult part of doing setups. So it would be mostly focused, but not exclusively focused, on why you're doing things and not how you do the things. So we'll cover both. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I encourage you to navigate to my website, send me an email. I'd like to be getting them started like end of May, early June. And it'll be kind of a first come, first serve thing. So go to my website, shoot me an email, let me know you're interested, and we'll go from there. I'll send you more information. So yeah, on to today's topic. I'm gonna veneer the front and the back of this headstock. But we're just gonna do the front today. And this is always kind of a tricky procedure, I feel like. With high glue, with PVA glue, from my recollection, it's been a long time, it's really slippery. You have all these pieces of veneer, you wanna put them on the headstock, all nice and wet with glue, clamp it down, stuff wants to slide everywhere. It's a huge pain in the ass. It can be. But I'm using hide glue, and one of the advantages of hide glue is that I can easily veneer it with a veneer hammer, which is just a piece of wood with, I've got some brass here, it holds heat, it's a nice flat surface, and I can just squeegee the veneer onto the surface. You know, it's how I make purfling. When I make purfling, you lay out a strip of one layer, cover it in glue, cover the next layer in glue, put it down, squeegee it flat, put the next layer on. You can just really quickly make veneer work. This is how, you know, if you're making like veneered furniture, you're not gonna put a piece of veneer down and then have a huge caul. If you're working with hide glue, you use the hammer to put the veneer on. And it has the advantage of you're not putting pressure down to bring the pieces together and having them slip across each other. You're actually just like kind of ironing them together. And you have a lot more control over keeping the orientation of the pieces solid. We're gonna do kind of a hybrid approach in that I'm gonna veneer the really thin veneers. This is like vulcanized paper that's been sized, that's why it's all crinkly. And you know, this is like 0.6 millimeter maple veneer. We're gonna veneer that on with the veneer hammer, but the thicker top veneer piece that's like 3 millimeters thick, 3¼ millimeters thick. I'm gonna do this with a caul and clamp it on. I could probably do this with a veneer hammer, but I would rather do it with the caul, and then I can leave it overnight and everything will be nice and tight together. So yeah, I'm gonna get started on that. Okay, so in terms of preparations to do this, I've got the veneer hammer. It is in a pot of nearly boiling water. If it starts to boil, it's not a big deal. I want the brass piece to be really hot. Veneer hammer is really easy to make on your own. You know, it's just a piece of dowel and some wood. Probably better not to have it have a glue joint like this one has, but I've been having fun seeing how long the hide glue will hold up while it's just sitting in this pot. It's like it's hide glue with like potassium alum, so it's supposed to be waterproof. We'll see. So far so good, but they're really easy to make. And then I just put this brass rod in, and I used my least favorite thing in the world, which is epoxy, to hold it in. It'd also be interesting to just like make a sliding dovetail, so you could just slide it in, but that was more work than I wanted to put into it. If I remake it at some point, it's really hard to get it to float. There's also like a piece of wood, so it sits on the surface, and it's real steamy. Can I get that without steaming the camera? Maybe. Can't tell. And then I've got hide glue heated up, waiting. And I've got the neck in a nice convenient place to work with. So in just a couple minutes, I'm gonna have this ready to go. I'm not gonna want to explain this while I'm doing it, so I'm gonna explain it now. It's just gonna be layering. I'm gonna put glue on the surface. I'm gonna put glue on the top surface of this, because it's gonna be wet on both sides that way, and so it's not gonna want to fold in any weird ways. And then it's just gonna go down, and we're gonna use the veneer hammer to essentially flatten it up against this headstock, and then probably put a little bit more glue on there, glue on both sides of this. It's gonna go on there, glue on both sides of this. It's gonna go on. We're gonna be veneering between each one. This is just how I find that it's the easiest to do. You could potentially sandwich them all together and then veneer it, but generally speaking, I think it's really easiest for me to do like one layer at a time. And then when that's all done, I'm gonna heat up a thicker veneer a little bit, glue it, put it on, clamp the whole thing up. Okay, so we're starting. I said I was just gonna do a voiceover, so when I said I didn't want to explain it while I was doing it, I am. So I want to make sure I get glue on every layer. And as a note, I don't normally size the vulcanized paper, but I had done it for this one because I thought it would help to keep it from absorbing so much glue, and maybe help adhesion between layers. But it's really nice actually that it turns out it curls a lot less while you're putting glue on it when it's sized. So that's pretty nice. And I'm moving like pretty quickly here, but I don't need to move crazy fast because that veneer hammer is very hot from sitting in a pot of boiling water off screen. And so it's going to reactivate the glue pretty easily since I'm working one layer at a time with a really, really thin, it's like 1/1000th of an inch layer. So I don't need to be crazy fast. And although it'll skate around a little bit while I'm hammering it, I still am going to end up with a ton of control. and a ton of control because I'm only having to do one layer at a time. So right away, this feels like easier to me than trying to do all of these at one time, glue them, get them on, clamp it all down before the glue gels. And again, now I'm essentially mostly working with the second glue layer. The heat might reactivate the first glue layer, but once you get it really tacked down, it seems to stay pretty well down. It's important to note that when you're doing this, when that first initial hammer pass, or the first passes you make on a layer, you do want to make sure that you're getting all of the glue squeeze out while the glue is still very liquid, because although you can reactivate it later with heat, it's going to be really hard to get bubbles of glue out if you don't fully press it out, and the whole thing is going to tack down a lot better. Each layer will tack down a lot better if you get as much of the glue squeegeed out as you can. I imagine it's a little bit of the stickiness of the glue and a little bit of surface tension that will hold each layer down. You'll notice the corners seem to be curling, and from this camera angle it looks like it might be concerning, but from where I'm standing it's not at all concerning, because I can tell that those are not anywhere near what's going to actually end up as part of the headstock. What's in the center and that's going to end up actually in the headstock is very flat, very well secured down with the glue. So yeah, I'm just making sure that this is nice and solidly down before I start heating up the thicker veneer plate, and then I'll glue that down. And now I've got that veneer plate heated up. I'm going to make one more pass. It's probably not necessary on the veneers that I have already hammered down. And I can already tell this glue up isn't going to be super smooth. But I want to leave it in its entirety because of the fact that it's not actually super smooth, and the fact that a lot of times the mark that hide glue gets against it is that it gels up too fast to use, or it's just too difficult to make work because of that, because you don't have a lot of open time. You don't have 5 or 10 minutes of open time. But I don't think that's really true. I've heated up that plate, which is going to extend my open time quite a bit. Over people often talk about you have a minute, which just really depends on the climactic conditions and the thickness of the glue and all sorts of stuff like that. But generally, it's a good rule. This is gonna be a terrible glue up. It's just not going well at all. But I'm still gonna finish this in 2 minutes, which heating up the plate means I'm still gonna be getting liquid squeeze out when I'm putting the second clamp on. And there's all sorts of ways to work around the open time on hide glue, to extend the open time and to reopen the glue when you need to. So just the time consideration, I don't think is any good reason not to use it. Glue up couldn't really go too much worse than this, I feel like. And yet this is still pulled off in plenty of time. we're done for all intents and purposes right there. I'm gonna try and put a third clamp on, more out of like frustration of how the slope's going than actual need. All right, so here we are, all finished. I glued the back veneer on as well, and I cut this away so you can see, hopefully you can see on my phone camera, it's a nice even glue line we've got, and I think overall it's a lot easier method of doing the veneer stack on a headstock. If you're using hide glue, to be able to deal with the veneers one at a time instead of having the entire stack with fresh glue on it kind of skating around, wanting to move around on you. So hopefully this will be a helpful trick for you in your building, or just an interesting tidbit to know. If you do think this is an interesting video or helpful video, please hit the like button. If you're not already, consider giving me a follow. And again, if you're interested in guitar setup classes or instruction in other elements of guitar building, check out my website. Or if you just want to see more of my work, and yeah, keep an eye out for more of these videos. Thanks for watching.